Hello everyone, welcome to Blind Beauty. I'm Jennifer, and today we're going to do a St. Patrick's Day makeup tutorial that's beginner friendly. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our primer today. The primer that we're using is the Monistat Chafing Relief Powder Gel, which you've seen me use in other tutorials, and I'll try to put cards up where you can see my most popular ones up here. And you just put that on your hands and dot that all over my face is what I'm doing here. And then I rub it in. Rub it in really good. Make sure I get it all over my face and down onto my neck. Because whenever I put foundation on, which is what I'm going into now, and I'm using the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless. I'm in 220 Natural Beige for this. Whenever I use foundation, I try to get it on my neck as well. So I couldn't tell if it really showed in the right orientation whenever I did this video. So that's why I had the whatever look. And you just put a little bit in your hand. And then what I'm doing is I dot it all over my face, just like I did the primer in a way. Only I dot it all over, getting all that foundation off my hand onto my face. And then I take it. And I take my hands and I just rub it in. That's the easiest way for a beginner to get started with foundation, is to use the hands. Because then I can tell whether I actually got it all over or not. Because you can tell whenever you're hitting bare skin and whenever you run out of foundation. And then I'm cleaning off my hands. I'm using the Equate makeup wipes that are comparable to Pond's here. I make sure to get my hands pretty good and clean after I do this because I don't want foundation all over everything else as well. Now we're going to go on in and use a Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. And I'm in the shade medium for this tutorial at least. I'm using the shade medium. It's the Dark Circle Eraser. I put that in a upside down triangle, a small one. I'm not doing major highlighting here. I just do an upside down triangle and then I blend it in using my ring finger to tap it all in and blend it with my foundation, because otherwise it'll be little white looking triangles under my eyes, and that's not something that's very pretty. So once that's all in, we go ahead and we move to the powder. Excuse me. We move to the powder, and I'm using a fluffy powder brush. The brush set you'll see me using mostly in this tutorial is a Shany brush set that I'm using. And it's about $7.50 add-on item right now on Amazon. It's not awful, but it's not the best you'll see whenever it comes to the eye makeup. But the powder we're using today is the Coty Airspun powder. And I believe it's in the color Translucent Extra Coverage. And I'm using that all over my face. And I dip my powder brush in and then I just sweep it all over. Yes, I know some people may say, oh, you're using way too much. But for me, I don't put too terribly much on the brush because I tap quite a bit of it off. And I make sure that my foundation is well set, because otherwise foundation can move throughout the day, and with me being combination skin, I do tend to get oily. So now I'm going in with an eyeshadow brush. This is a flat shader looking brush that's fairly large actually. I'm using that one out of the Shany set that I mentioned, and I am using the Comfort Zone palette by Wet n Wild. We're going into the... If you are looking at the palette yourself, you have it in hand, it would be the yellow color at the top left-hand side. Well, either way, I'm showing you the top left-hand side. So I'm using that, and basically I'm making sure that that concealer that I rubbed up onto my eyes a little bit is good and set. Even though I added powder already, this is going to be our base color as well as our highlight. So basically I'm working some people do highlight last. I'm working in reverse order. Now I'm using another flat, smaller shader brush with the e.l.f. Blush and Bronzer Duo. That's only $3, which is a wonderful deal for this palette, because I love the blush and bronzer. And I'm using that in the crease. This set did not come with a fluffy blending brush, or a really good crease brush for that matter. So I'm putting this in the crease with that brush, but then I go in and grab just, I believe it's one of the Mary Kay brushes. I'm not sure that I have. I believe it is. Looking Mary Kay, yeah, fluffy blending brush is what I'm using here. And I go back into that bronzer color, the brownish color, and I'm putting that in the crease. And making sure to buff it in really good using windshield wiper motions instead of an actual buffing motion. Because I want it to be our transition color. Whenever you put a color, especially a green, or, well, most colors, whenever you put a color on the eyelid, it helps to have some kind of transition from your brow bone to your lid. Otherwise, it can seem harsh on the eyelid. So that's why I use a transition color. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm using another smaller shader brush. And I'm using the L'Oreal Infallible eyeshadow in Golden Emerald. These can be a little bit pricey, unfortunately. They're about $7, best I remember. Anywhere between $6 and $8, usually, depending on where you get them. But they are one of the most beautiful eyeshadows I've ever used. I only have 2 of them. The Golden Emerald that you see here, and I have used Amber Rush in previous tutorials. So I'm packing that on the lid. And a packing motion is where you're just tapping, really, but I tap and sweep because I feel like that helps with the fallout, because this is a dry eyeshadow that I'm using. But I'm packing that on my lid really well, and whenever I feel like I've lost pigment, then I switch eyes, and I will dip into the color more. You can tell whenever you lose pigment because it doesn't go on, the brush doesn't go as smoothly on the eye. It tends to skip more whenever you are losing pigment on the brush. At least that's my experience. So that right there is what I've done so far with the Golden Emerald. Now we're using another small brush, and I'm going into the e.l.f. Baked eyeshadow, and it's in the color Enchanted. I believe that this is a dupe for Becca's Champagne Pop, Jaclyn Hill Champagne Pop. I believe that's what I've read. Now, I do not own that, but I use this in the inner corner just to help brighten up that look, because I'm not used to darker colors on my eyes. I feel like it is very dark right now, so I'm adding just a little bit in the inner corner just to brighten it up a little bit. So that's what I did. And now we are going to take the L'Oreal Hydra Fresh toner. I have it in a spray bottle here that I'm showing you. And I spritz that onto a brush. One of the brushes I used before, the one that we used for the Golden Emerald before. And I'm going back in to that L'Oreal Infallible Golden Emerald shadow that we used, and packing that on the lid even more. Just helping, whenever I wet my brush, it really helps to bring out the foiled effect, the sparkliness of it. So that's why wetting the brush helps so much. That's why I do it with this one, and you've seen me do it with the Amber Rush in past tutorials. So wetting the brush can make it more pigmented, but it will also bring out the shimmer sometimes more as well. So now I'm Now that that's packed on the lid really well, I'm using another small, a really small detailing brush is what I call it, and going into the Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette using that dark green color. Now that does have some shimmer, which normally I would not like shimmer on the outer corners, but you just use a tiny bit of this because this palette is very pigmented. It was one of the very first palettes I actually owned whenever I was learning how to do makeup myself. That's why I thought I'd introduce it here. And that's why whenever you see the beginner makeup kit, it will be in there as well. Because it is a great palette for beginners. It has neutral shades, but shades that are very well pigmented. So I'm using that shadow now and putting it on the outer corners and going barely into the crease. You barely sweep it on the outer edges and then up into the crease just a little bit, maybe about a third to a half, maybe at most, of the way in. I go about a third and then blend about halfway in. Sorry, my sinuses are bothering me today, so. But you make sure to get that well blended across the eyelid, because that will help give some depth to the eye look. Now I'm going in with the small brush that we used with the e.l.f. Enchanted before, using that Hydra Fresh toner and wetting it, and I couldn't find the the Enchanted eyeshadow. I couldn't find the Enchanted eyeshadow for a minute. That's what oh my goodness, how silly. And it was right in front of my face. But I'm getting that all over my brush, and I'm tapping this on the inner corner a little bit more to try to brighten it up even more. However, I messed up on this look, honestly. I should have left the inner quarter to third of the eye completely bare so that this would give more of a pop. But it does give a little bit of a pop in the inner corner, even though it is layered on top of the golden emerald. It kind of brings a little bit more gold to the look in my eyes. Or in my opinion, rather. And on my eyes. But, that's what I did there. Now I'm just looking for the fan brush I'm going to use. And some people will do bronzer, blush, highlight. In this case, I'm not using contour or bronzer. I'm just using the e.l.f. Illuminating palette highlight first. And I'm using that bottom right hand side color. Now these do pop out of the palette, which is awesome because there's several of these palettes. There's a bronzing palette, a contour palette, which I have the contour palette and the illuminating palette, and then there's also 2 shades of the blush palette and a foundation palette, and they're all about $6 each. But you sweep this on the high points of the cheek, and then this time I'm actually going in a C shape above my brow bone as well. I'm not sweeping it down the nose or on the forehead. I'm basically just focusing this on the eyes area and under the cheeks, or on the cheeks rather, not under. But then I'm taking concealer and cleaning up some eyeshadow that had fallen off. With this lighting, I couldn't tell whether that was really a shadow or whether it was green, so I just went with that it was green and fixed it. With my eyesight, I can't always tell, and unfortunately, I don't have the best lighting for makeup. So that's an issue whenever applying makeup. And here I'm showing you that this kit comes with a couple other size brushes, and I'm using the larger of the two, the blush brush, and I'm going into the e.l.f. Blush and Bronzer Duo in St. Lucia, and I'm using the blush shade, and I'm going to sweep that on the cheek. You start on the apple of the cheek, and just work my way back. I do a swirling motion all the way back, a quick swirling motion. This blush is pigmented, so I have to be careful with that. Now I'm going in with the Rimmel ScandalEyes eyeliner. Now this is one of the best water well, I believe it's waterproof at least. It is on me. Eyeliners. It's one of the best ones I've found that is so creamy. And I'm lining my upper lash line. I'm not going in the waterline. I'm going on the actual lash line. And that just added a little bit of definition to my lashes. Now I'm using the Maybelline Color Sensational lipstick in Daringly Nude. I meant to add another layer of this, that's why I went ahead and put it on now before mascara. But, you know, that happens. Do a good layer of that on my lips. And that is a matte lipstick, so it doesn't add any shimmer to my lips. Now we go in with mascara. You can curl lashes if you want to. It does help. But I didn't in this tutorial. I'm not sure why, but I didn't. And then I just sweep that on my lashes. Now, if you notice, I am blinking into the lash applicator. That helps to give my lashes an evenly coated look. And my arm is fairly steady, but I blink into the applicator. And that helps to not poke myself in the eye as much. I don't know if you caught that I did that on the other eye, but I did poke myself in the eye, which does happen. But this is the finished look right here. Something great for St. Patrick's Day and great for a night out. So I hope that you recreate it, and if you do, let me know. And all the photos that were done by GMC Photo Editing. So check her out. I'll leave her link below, and you can follow us on all of our social media. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.